Hello class, this is the topic or the tutorial video for zeros of functions. So the definition of a zero of a function, there's two different ones. Graphically, it is the point or points at which the graph, here, let's fix that up a little bit. Oh boy. Here we go. So, at which the graph crosses or intersects the x-axis. So visually, you could see that. You would look at the x-axis and see where it crosses. However, you also can determine a zero algebraically. And algebraically, it is the pointer points at which f of x is equal to 0. So, sometimes zeros also go by other names. Sometimes you will see them be called roots. Sometimes you will see them be called x-intercepts. And sometimes you will see them just be the solutions. So, in that case, you have all of those different names that mean the same thing as zero. So we're going to look at a couple of examples. The first type of example that we're going to look at is when we have the graph. So if we look at these examples here, we are always just looking at that x-axis. We look at the x-axis and we are trying to see exactly where x is equal to 0, where it crosses that x-axis. So if we look here, this linear equation, this function, only crosses the x-axis at one point, and that is the point where x is equal to 2. So our 0 is x is equal to 2. In number 2, we're looking at that same thing. We are looking along the x-axis, and this one here, it crosses in two different points. It crosses over on the negative side of the x-axis and on the positive side. So, the way that we write a set of two or more solutions is we are going to use those lovely bracket things, and we say x is equal to negative 2, and it's also equal to a positive 1. So we are going to write it as a set. For the last one that we're going to go over together, before I want you to finish and try some of the other ones, we are going to go over number 3. Number 3, similar thing. If we look along that x-axis, it crosses the x-axis here and here. So my solution for number 3 is x is equal to the set negative 3 and positive 4. Go ahead and take a moment and try the rest of those ones in the graphing section. So try 4, 5, and 6 on your own. So So if we go ahead and check your answers, number 4, the set was was at -3 and 3. Number 5, the set was at -1 and 5. And number 6, the set the zeros were at -5, 0, and 3. Again, remember, when you go ahead and we are solving by graphing, we look at the x-axis and we are looking to see where the function crosses that. The second way that we go through and we can solve for zeros of functions is algebraically. So that means by hand. So we're going to go over a couple of these examples, and then you will continue to go over some of them on your own like you did with the graphs. So if we look at number 1, it says f of x is equal to 4x minus 8. So they give us an equation. So the first step is we are going to set the function equal to 0. So when we do that, if we set this function equal to 0, then using your guys' brains, if we look at that, conceptually, instinctually, what you want to do in that is you should be solving for x. So step 2 is solve for x. So here we would add 8 to both sides, cancel out, so I have 8 is equal to 4x. I would divide both sides by 4, so x is equal to 2. So my solution, my 0 for that equation, or for that function, is going to be x is equal to 2. For number 2, again, we do the same thing. We set it equal to 0. And when I go to solve, I'm subtracting 2 from both sides. So I get -2 is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2. So for number 2, I get x is equal to -1. The last one that I would like to go over is number 4. So with number 4, we have a fraction there, but we're still going to go through the same process. We set it equal to 0. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to solve for x. So if we look here, we're going to add 6 to both sides. And so then I get 6 is equal to 2/3 times x. Now, we could divide by the fraction, or we could multiply by the reciprocal. Remember, this reciprocal is when you flip the fraction. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. So I'm going to multiply each side by 3/2. What I get then is 3 times 6 is 18. So I would have 18/2 is equal to x. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. So x is equal to 9. Go ahead and complete 3, 5, and 6 for me. Pause this video, and then we can go ahead and check your answers. So my answers for 3, 5, and 6. Number 3, my 0 is at x is equal to 7. Number 5, my 0 is at x is equal to -4. And for number 6, my 0 would be at x is equal to 10. The last way is using technology. So your notes say buy a graphing calculator, and those steps are listed below. If you have a graphing calculator or access to one, that's great. You can follow those steps there. However, We have also been practicing using Desmos. So by Desmos, we go through in step 1, you would type in your equation. And then the second step is you would look at the x-axis and just follow those graphically steps that we talked about at the beginning of the notes. So I'm just going to go over a couple of these with you and show you what the graph looked like when I typed in the function and then how to find those. So we will go ahead and go over numbers 1, 3, and we will also do number 7. So go ahead and make sure that you have a Desmos tab open on your computer, and we will go over how to solve these by using technology. So I'm going to go over by using Desmos. However, if you have access to a graphing calculator and you all want to follow those steps, you're also welcome to do so. So number 1, if you go into desmos.com, you will type in y is equal to x squared minus 16. Remember that y is equal to the same thing as f of x. So when you type in this, this function, if we go through and we look at the x-axis, it will actually bring up your zeros for you. It gives you those zeros or where it crosses the x-axis as a coordinate, and then all you need to do is write it in that set notation. So the answer to this one here is x is equal to -4 and to +4. So our solution, again, our steps, we type it into Desmos, hit enter, look along that x-axis and see the points which they identify as 0, or where the function crosses the x-axis. For number 3, when we look at it, we do the same thing. You go ahead and type in your equation into Desmos. So in this case, I typed in -x squared minus 2x plus 24. When I go ahead and I look across the x-axis, I again have 2 solutions, and my solutions for this one are at the points -6, 0 and +4, 0. So for this solution, I have x is equal to the set of -6 and 4. Those are my zeros in this function. The last example that I'm going to go over today is number 7. So it is actually a cubic function. So it looks a little bit different than the other 2 quadratic functions that we looked at before. So if this one is a cubic function, again, what we are doing, we are looking along this x-axis here, because we have already typed in the function to our graph. And this one has 3 different answers. So when I go to write my set of x values, where y is equal to 0, right? My solutions along that x-axis, I have -1, 2, and 4. So for this one, my function is equal to 0 at the points -1, 2, and 4 at those x values. This is the end of the video for zeros of functions. If you have any questions, please make sure you email me or try to leave a question that the substitute could ask me. I will see you guys all on Wednesday. Have a great day.